You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
The wheel is turning and you can't slow down. You can't let go and you can't hold on. You can't go back.
Hello, welcome back into my Wheelhouse. We're in New England, home of the, once again, Super Bowl champion New England Patriots.
Six-time champions.
Well done, Tom, Bill, and the
Bravo,
whole staff.
Patriots.
Are we favorites for next year?
I have no clue.
Kansas
Probably
City's
not.
favorites.
Probably not.
Early
That's okay.
odds says Kansas City.
It's been proven that we like the mantra of being the underdog, even though we got the majority of the bets placed on us.
It's almost boring at this point. That was, it's such a well-executed
So
defensive
satisfying.
game, and they just pretty much owned that game.
I think
through
Brady's
and
going to
through.
deal with the devil. He looks the same now as he did when he was 24. In terms of his body and his face and everything, he doesn't look too much different in some of those pictures.
That game, though, that Super Bowl had the lowest ratings of any Super
Last
Bowl
night?
since 2009.
I believe it. A lot of people would turn it off after the first quarter, first half.
That's
and
too
then
slow for non-football
There was
fans.
also there was a
I
lot
really
of
enjoyed
dissent from a portion of the fan base that was maybe disappointed in the previous round. So there was lots of reasons not to watch, obviously. So
It's definitely not good for the brand.
no, I would say
I thought it was good. I loved it. I thought there was a lot of tension right from the beginning of the game all the way through. You're always on edge.
Definitely on edge. So
I think a lot of it, though, is quarterback play. I think we can all agree that the quarterback play was mediocre. Wasn't
Well,
up to snuff.
Was Goff deer in the headlights?
A little bit. I think he was a
He
little
was
bit
getting
scared.
panicked. He was panicked.
He's 24 years old. He's going to be there again.
They talked about him not having McVay's voice in his ears after 15 seconds, maybe 20 times. So maybe he wasn't able to make his own decisions.
I think McVay missed his get-back coach, the guy who holds him back.
We'll maybe get to more Tom talk in a little bit.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Before the wheel, I feel like I had a couple things, like short snippets. What was it? Chris Bosh is getting his jersey retired by the Miami Heat.
By the Miami Heat.
I forget.
So he played there, 3 years?
Well, that's where he won his championships.
Yeah, I know, but Toronto, he was there
for. He played there 5.
He played there 5 years?
Because he played there in the seasons after LeBron had left.
It's kind of a slap
a
in the
good
face
citizen.
to Toronto. He sort of became who he is in Toronto, and Toronto loved him.
Toronto can retire his jersey too.
Well,
Why-
that's
you know what I
true.
mean?
But
I
they
think
should have
we can
announced
get
it
to it.
first.
There was one other thing that I think of it. I'll throw it out there.
Ooh, board's nice and loose.
Yeah. And the Kristaps Porzingis in the New York Knicks completed a surprise deal. I believe it was on Thursday evening.
Pretty big news.
To the Dallas Mavericks. The complete information of the deal was coming from New York. Kristaps, the bad contracts of Courtney Lee and Tim Hardaway, and then just a filler in Trey Burke. And in return from the Dallas Mavericks, they got back young rookie point guard who was aforementioned in a lot of trade discussions, but supposedly got back and they smoothed things over. Dennis Smith Jr.
Second year now.
And then expirings in DeAndre Jordan and Wesley Matthews, along with 2 picks that are both first rounds that are contingent on them either yielding the pick that they traded in the Doncic deal with the Trae Young swap, and if that if that pick conveys, then it'll be a 2021 first that'll be unprotected, and then a 2023 first-round pick that'll be top 10 protected.
Yeah.
So obviously Porzingis is the big name, and I think just based off of your initial thought process, like the first 2 hours of looking at this trade and looking at what the consensus thought process from experts and people looking around, I think it was commonly accepted that the Mavs got the better of the Knicks, and the Knicks continually making another kind of boneheaded decision. And although I do think that the Mavs won the trade, I think the more that I look at the deal and how it's fitting, my final stance is you can't conclude how it worked out until we know what New York is going to do with this cap space that they freed up with this deal. Because with this deal, they clear up the 2 max contract
So they
slots.
traded Kristaps Porzingis for cap space.
Right.
Yeah.
Cap space and Dennis Smith.
That's why you can't really fault
We don't
them.
know. We don't
We
know.
can say in a vacuum, if we, had down the line vision or future vision, we could say that they obviously got crushed in this deal.
Right.
But obviously, if they know more than we know, or if they at least know they want to be players in next year's free agency, then it's a good move.
I will preface.
I don't
I will
think so.
preface the discussion that I think I would bet a lot of money, and I think I'm very confident Kevin Durant is going to the New York Knicks.
I'm not.
I'm very confident.
I'm not.
I'm very confident. I think he's
I
going
think
there.
people might have already talked to each other because if they don't know something,
tampering
then this is such a bad move.
Yeah.
They have him. I mean, he's a restricted free agent next year. They had Kristaps Porzingis, and he's a pretty good player, under 25 years old, can shoot, can play defense.
They're playing fantasy basketball. That's what they're doing. I mean, they're actually saying.
Yeah, I mean, you could
but
go
they're,
with the take
they're
Dolan
putting
strikes
names
again.
on them. Zion's one of the names. They got such a slim chance of getting Zion no matter what, yet that's part of their deal with Zion. It's Zion, Kyrie, and Durant.
Well, the
basically.
Mavericks aren't going to be a lottery pick.
Kyrie's
they're not going to be a top three
long
pick
shot
anyway.
by anybody. I think Durant's a long shot if they don't get anybody else, Shay, because
I think
why
Durant-
would you go on that team has just got worse.
Well, the reason-
they're playing fantasy
Well,
basketball.
Kristaps didn't want to play for them either. That's the
doesn't
problem. So, like, if he becomes like an Anthony
But-
Davis, they probably wanted to get
But
something out of him.
Mills said he had 8 offers. 8 offers.
I don't know if I believe that.
Well, he's saying he had 8 offers, and leading up that they did a lot of due diligence. That's why the deal. I mean, Kristaps went in there, and a half an hour later he was traded. He
Yeah.
went, they were ready. They had played
But
Dallas
you
the night
can't think
before.
that they had better offers
I
out
mean,
there.
one of them he put out there was Booker and another player from Phoenix. That happened before the season.
Right, that wasn't the offer. So,
But anyways, they could have done better in terms of getting something tangible rather than
Probably.
playing fantasy
With
ball.
everything with the
I'm not
Knicks,
sure
you
if
could
they
say they could do better. Dolan's been awful. for
Dolan
them.
is terrible, and he's a terrible owner, but I don't know how many of his fingerprints are on this type of deal. And I think that it's a common underlying theme to this discussion, and probably to 90% of the other discussions we're going to have for the rest of the day today, is that when a storyline, a leak, a source, or whatever it is comes out, you need to think about it, and when you process it in terms of how realistic it is, how real it is, and what it means, you need to think about, 1, who it benefits, and 2, what it makes sense for it to come out now, and what area it would be coming from. So with these Porzingis leaks and stuff, Mills coming out and saying I had this many offers, that's only trying to bolster himself up. But if you look at if you look at reporters and stuff, and they're people, top reporters, top analysts, they're saying that they're surveying GMs, they're calling GMs, asking if they had any input in the Kristaps Porzingis, and they're saying that they were completely floored and surprised with offers. So it's all speculation
Okay,
in
I'll give
terms
you a
of
fact.
how you can
Will you accept
view
this?
the deal.
Will you
I think
accept this fact that poorly managed teams are not doing well in the NBA?
Well, yeah,
and
that's-
the Knicks are poorly managed?
Yes, of course. Competitive.
That's a
the
fact.
biggest competitive
so
advantage
why
in
wouldn't you look at this and say,
basketball-
here's a poorly managed team that played fantasy basketball and traded Kristaps Porzingis for cap space? That's the way I look at it. I say bad.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't end up getting one of the big free agent names. We've heard rumblings of LeBron thinking about going
2010.
there, wearing New York Yankees caps.
In the Heatles summer, that was a big thing.
And
they
then
cleared
what
up those
happened? They got Amari Stoudemire. He was good for half a season, a little bit more than half a season, and then it was injury riddled for the rest of his career, and they stunk forever. They've made the wrong moves before. When you think they were lined up to make the right move, they've made wrong moves. They're going to do it again.
A lot of the trade
That's what I'm betting.
potential that was coming out, and when you're saying about Phoenix, Booker was never on the table. It was Josh Jackson and a couple other middling bench players before Josh Jackson was before Josh Jackson.
But my point is that they could have done tangibly something better for Kristaps. If they knocked on the Celtics' door, they might have got something for Kristaps that was real.
It's interesting today in the league when you have an expiring deal or a big contract. In terms of trading it and moving it on the market, it's commonly accepted that to get off of somewhere between $15 to $20 million, that's what's equivalent to a first-round pick. So if you're that's what teams kind of ballpark it as. So if you're looking at it in terms of what this trade completed for them, not only did they get 2 first-round picks back, they also got off of the equivalent of two more first-round picks and getting off of the Lee and Hardaway contract. So essentially, they
was a
got
big
Dennis
dump.
Smith and the equivalent of 4 first-round picks in addition
Shay, I
to
hear
cap
you.
space.
Shay,
So and on paper, and you're right, and maybe it is a fantasy basketball aspect, but in a way, don't you need to kind of act with your team.
But the one thing
in
they
a
really
fantasy
need is
manner
If the
that-
sometimes.
Celtics did
But the
this,
one thing-
I'd probably be all in because I'd say Ainge, ownership.
Yes, okay.
You know,
Okay,
the
that's fine,
Knicks
yeah.
did this.
And the one thing
Yeah,
the
but they're
Knicks really
ruined,
need
man.
is that one,
Yeah.
though. They could really use a Zion.
Yes, of
Zion in New York
But
would be
that's
amazing.
That is
they,
fantasy.
They could have held
they got a
Kristaps
14%
till next
chance.
draft.
A 14% chance. Would you trade
maybe they
Kristaps
would've had a
Porzingis
better
for a
chance
14% chance at Zion?
Well, that's another thing is this team.
But
the
they
Celtics
might-
have a
but they
better
might-
chance
what
at
I'm-
Zion than the Knicks do.
But what I'm saying is the Knicks could have
do.
held him. He's a restricted free agent. They could have tried to trade him around the draft with a package for the #1 pick.
So that's
Although I don't know if somebody's going to trade
That's another
Zion for
interesting
him.
aspect. So prior to the deal, they had Porzingis, and obviously, though he was the biggest player in the deal, he's not playing. So in terms of what product you're putting on the floor, the product that they have now is going to be better because even though Porzingis wasn't playing, and even though DeAndre Jordan is farly less,
Pawns, oh my God,
way
hit
worse
pawns.
than he was before. But I mean, this team is a little bit better in terms of court production now than what they were a week ago. So this might hurt their potential ability to get the #1 pick. Now, instead of being in the mix in the morass and depending on how they shift and what games they lose at the end of the season, now they might be in the 4th spot above the Cavs, the Bulls, and the Phoenix Suns, where right now, based off the record that they have so far, they're right in that mix. Now they might separate themselves above those, and maybe they're going to be closer to where the Hawks are, because the Hawks have separated themselves to being the 5th worst team in the league instead of in this bottom 4.
Then
you know?
they'll have a
I'm still not
17%
convinced.
chance instead of a 14%
I'm
chance.
still not convinced.
Well,
New
we
York's
should
gonna
we should
have a
talk
very good
about the
product out
other
there.
side of the trade. I
Yes,
think it's
yes.
tremendously interesting that you now have matched up KP and Doncic. I mean, and when you look at the young duos, the next generation of young duos, you know, Embiid and Simmons, and this is major that these guys, and you got Dirk right there as a mentor. It looks like there's a connection there. I'm looking at that as something really strong. I don't know what
And Dallas immediately becomes an international favorite.
Well, and you know, something I've said all along is that I don't see a European player becoming a franchise player because of the way things run in Europe in terms of no AAU ball. They're not used to being a superstar prima donna when they're 14 years old. Doncic might be the exception to that. And Doncic may be a franchise player coming out of Europe, and it's going to make it easier on Porzingis. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about, and when you look at all the young combinations in the league, there's a lot of them, that next generation coming in. That's fun.
It's fun to see Doncic and Jokic both, you know, really making an imprint on this league as very
you got-
smart, very, you know, reactionary instinct players.
So you
They've
got
good guts.
Jokic and Murray. That's a nice young combination going forward. There's a bunch of them.
Underrated part of this story. Obviously, Porzingis is the headliner, as we said. But the other two guys that were completely just filling a hole that nothing in New York, in Courtney Lee and Tim Hardaway. Courtney Lee wasn't even playing. These guys actually surprisingly fit in pretty well alongside Doncic. And I think Tim Hardaway is going to be a very serviceable player. And although his contract makes him have the image of being an overpaid guy, I think that his shooting and his off-ball movement and his shot creation as a secondary creator on this team will be much more well-served in the Dallas Mavericks than it was on the New York Knicks. And I think that you could be surprised in lineups at the end of games that next year that maybe have all three of those guys coming in. Courtney Lee, Tim Hardaway, Doncic, Porzingis, those four are going to be on the court together, and I think that they're going to look good.
With the horrible situation he got in New York, he actually progressed. He actually, his game actually advanced.
He went through a streak where he was scoring almost 30 every game for about 8 games. He could end up like a 6 Man of the Year nominee on this Dallas team, just sparking that offense in the second
There was a little bit of unusualness because I think it was probably coming from Porzingis' agency. As soon as the trade was completed, they said that Porzingis was going to take his qualifying offer, which obviously would have been not a smart decision because he's coming off the ACL injury and he doesn't have a lot of security in terms of a max contract. A max contract offer has never been turned down in terms of a second contract after your rookie deal. I do think that, and we've heard now since that he's had his presser was this morning, his press conference, and he seems well aligned with the future of the team. He wants to be there long term. When Doncic talks, he wants to be there for a very long time. So you can tell that they've already coalesced and they have a good relationship already. And
I don't like his brother, though. You know, that's kind of
his name's Giannis. His brother's name is Giannis.
Yeah, and he seems to play too much of a role in these things.
Yeah, you can tell that.
We got that on the board,
Carlisle
too.
and stuff are they're liking him. They're letting Giannis in as a Giannis Porzingis. But
Davis's dad has been playing a role lately.
it's unusual
Too.
who has
Family members
responsibilities.
shouldn't really have mics.
Yeah, we can spin away. I think that it'll end up being a huge loss if they don't get Kevin Durant plus someone else, but it'll be a win if they get Kevin Durant.
Happy for Dallas.
Big three, quick trivias.
All right. This is a fun one. Name 3 of the 5 fattest NBA players who, at their peak weight, were
Sean
in
Kemp.
the top. Yes. Sean Kemp.
Stole them. I'm sorry, Shay,
Sean
but
Kemp is in there. His
I got
peak
another one,
weight
too.
was like
Go ahead, Shay.
350.
So this is total weight ever?
Peak weight.
Tractor trailer.
Tractor trailer was number 5. Yes, he was.
John Hot Plate Williams.
I don't have him.
Oh, come on. They didn't
Who's
call him
that?
Hot Plate for nothing.
Who's that?
Hot plate.
John Hot Plate Williams. He played, a couple generations ago, but he played probably in the 80s.
I don't have him.
Look him up.
Ostertag.
No, but he's in the top 10.
Bummer. Ostertag.
Yeah,
What'd you say?
Greg Ostertag.
Greg Ostertag got up to about 310. That actually doesn't cut it.
doesn't cut it.
Well, are we just going total weight, whether they're in shape or not?
Yes, peak weight in the NBA. So
Well,
the highest they
we
got.
got Boban.
No, Boban's about 285.
Shaq.
Really?
Shaq in his peak weight was 360. So yeah,
360 big.
he was. Oh, I got a picture of him. That's not a good picture. When he was in the Celtics Cavaliers days, he was big. There's one big one. Real
Big Baby Davis.
No, he was like number 10 on the
290?
list.
Yeah.
They called him the Big Something.
The big something. I don't know. Ewing was pretty big in his Seattle days.
No,
How big was
another
Patrick Ewing.
former New York Knick though.
Okay.
Also played for the Knicks, for the Bulls. This is an obscure one. Eddie Curry was number 3. He was at
Yes,
350. And then
he's
number
playing in the
one,
big three.
number 1 all time, 375 pounds, was the Big O, Oliver Miller. Sort of stole the nickname from Oscar Robertson.
Jeez, no John Hot Plate Williams.
What else do I have? All right. Name 3 of the all-time leaders in 4-point plays.
I know who number 1 all time is.
So we'll start with Uncle Mike.
Steph Curry.
Steph Curry is currently up there. I think he's crept into the top 4. He's 19 now.
What are we going with? The top 3?
But I'll give you that one.
Oh, thanks.
Jamal Crawford.
Jamal Crawford is number 1 all time. He's got 47 all time.
Crazy stuff. 47.
Jason Terry.
That's so many.
No, that's a good guess though.
Lou Williams.
No.
Ray Allen.
Ray Allen is number 7 on the list with 13. Another former Clipper used to play with Lou.
I was gonna. I don't know. Paul Pierce.
James Harden.
No. He might be on there now, but this
When he had an
is
interesting
this was
start
at
on
the
Harden?
start of the season.
What do you got?
Go ahead.
Harden leads the league by far in attempted three-point shots. He ranks 87th in field goal and three-point field goal percentage.
It's okay.
That's okay. He
I
ranks
got
Wow, okay.
Reddick and J.J. Miller.
Reddick gets some. He kicks those legs out, huh?
Reggie Miller.
I always
yeah.
picture
Well,
Reddick
Reggie
going up
did,
and down
Reggie did a
straight.
lot of pump
Yeah,
fakes
he
and
did
then
a lot.
leaned in, so he was kind of started that. We all know that Phil Jackson and Red Auerbach lead the league in championship, or lead the
And wins.
all-time championship wins. Who is behind them
Championships?
in all-time championship wins? Since we're talking championships today.
Pat Riley.
Pat Riley has 5. He's got 4 with the Lakers and 1 when he was coaching the Heat.
Casey.
No.
He only has 3.
2 of the 3 remaining are current.
There's a one obvious one I just didn't say.
And they all have 3 or more here. After that, there's a bunch of people with 2.
Does Casey Johnson not have all 3?
Casey
Was he not
Johnson.
the coach
Casey
of all 3?
Johnson has
Who?
2.
Casey Jones.
Who was the
No.
one from
Casey
first?
Jones.
Fitch?
Might have
Fitch
been.
got 2.
I know Heinsohn has 2.
Fitch has 2.
I know Kuzi has 2.
Kuzi had 2? No, Kuzi did
No,
not.
Kuzi didn't have 2.
Kuzi went
But
to-
anyway,
he
two
coached Cincinnati Royals.
currents. 2 currents should be easy.
Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr. Yeah.
Popovich.
And Popovich. All right. That's our big 3.
There we go.
Yeah, those were easy. Didn't get them, but they were easy.
Those were easy.
All right,
On to
so
the Celtics.
Boston Celtics are moved to 7-1 all time in games that the New England Patriots were playing on the Super Bowl Sunday. pretty interesting stat. So we do pretty well when
I was more interested in
playing in
when
the
we
Super Bowl.
won, if they won, but that wasn't as definitive.
No, it was just when they play, we are
Yeah.
7-1.
Yeah.
But a good win against a very strong Thunder team that's been playing well. That one of the best defenses in the league. We had no issues putting up 120 plus against them.
130 plus.
That's right. And Kyrie has been playing electric. His clutch play lately has been among the top in the league in terms of scoring and assisting. He's had countless 10 assists plus games. He's really impacting the game. Marcus Smart's shooting continues to be a surprise storyline in the season so far. Jaylen Brown, his effort and his ability to get out on the break and to imprint his game in terms of effort has really increased in terms of his
Tatum on the break
consistency.
too. Tatum makes a break out of a made shot.
I think that our fast break tendencies are matching the players more accurately lately, which is really good. The team, it's matching together better and better each game, and the consistency is beginning to become more and more prevalent, and which was obviously the biggest issue in the struggles of the season. The one thing that continues to come back around, even though we're having success, I think we've won 9 out of our last 10. Is the struggling ability for the recovery to show a consistent sign of spark from Gordon Hayward. I think in the beginning of the season when we were talking about expectations for him, I think we all agree that we were a little bit higher coming out of the gate. But even on the low end, we were saying hopefully around February, March will be the time span where we're expecting a Gordon Hayward return in terms of him being maybe 80% of what he was or higher, to be more and more frequent. And literally besides, in terms of full games, I think the 2 Minnesota games are the only complete games where we've seen a full game of him being the type of player that we were expecting. And there has been sparks here and there, and he had a nice alley-oop dunk against New York, which was nice. And he's had drives where he's been aggressive, and he's looking for a shot in the mid-range. But we haven't had enough from him to be confident going into the postseason. Only a couple months away, where I'm not sure if he's going to be at the next level. And I think that him is a good, Gordon Hayward's inability to return to the Gordon Hayward that we were hopeful of is a good microcosm for the nervousness that we're starting to have that's stemming off of the Kyrie Irving uncertainty on him returning now that with this all the conjunction with everything else going in the trade season. I think that Gordon Hayward's struggle to return is really a good reflection of why there is uncertainty on that end. And I think if we were seeing a Gordon Hayward that we were looking for, I think that it would be so much more set in stone, and Kyrie would be so obviously cemented as he was preseason to the future in Boston.
It's really distressing, especially considering it seems like Gordon Hayward is putting in 100% effort. He's out there hustling and giving his best aggressiveness, and still playing like a C- player. And we're used to, his prime, he was a B+, A- player for Utah. And it's just really upsetting to the overall output of the team, and it's upsetting, obviously, to Kyrie. He's not saying it in so many words, but obviously what you're saying is true. Kyrie would be content if they were where they're supposed to be, if they were all at their peaks. But you need 2 or 3 stars to win.
I got a little different
Win the
take
big
on it.
ride.
My thinking before I heard Brad Stevens' take on it was that I love Gordon Hayward. I like everything he's doing, and he becomes a rallying cry for me with his team. Is that we accept him as he is. He's not like he's maybe going to be. That train's left the station in terms of him being where he's going to be at the end of the season. That's done. I think Brad Stevens continues to do an amazing job. And what he's doing with Hayward, and I heard you last week when you said that maybe less minutes, and I think he may be seeing a couple less minutes. His thinking on Hayward is simply that we're going to maintain confidence and faith. And I am going to maintain confidence and faith in Gordon Hayward. Some of the things that I'm seeing happening on the team that are different and just making him a rallying cry in terms of get him there, and we all want Gordon Hayward to do good, and that's it, period, whether he does or he doesn't, is that I think the team has made the adjustment. And that when you saw Kyrie out for those 2 games, and you saw how well that the team played, and you're seeing how I think Rozier and Brown have got renewed confidence.
I agree.
And that renewed confidence, part of it is coming from what they have to take up as a slack from Hayward, is that they come in now, and I think you're going to see consistent play from Rozier and Brown going forward. I was a little disappointed in Brown's second half yesterday.
Yeah, great
but,
first
but
half,
that's
great
really
first
just, but when you put together what he's been doing in terms of effort, in terms of aggressiveness, in terms of finishing, in terms of making decisive plays when he gets in, I think his confidence has returned. I'd like to talk about Kyrie a little bit, and you kind of have, when you're hearing things, everything goes through, first of all, I feel as though you got to take Kyrie as an odd type of person. That's always going to be playing games with the media. There's something with that connection with the media, like the flat earth thing. He's always going to have something to say that he's trying to make you think in a different way.
I'm done with him talking. If he
well,
wants to shut up, he should shut
You know,
up.
it was good. I agree.
He was getting on a soapbox, gathering.
His post game yesterday was 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and I'm saying, man, that would be nice if he can keep all his comments to 2 minutes and 30
because
seconds.
I don't get why he gathers the media around him and then complains about the media's
They had
take.
PJ Calistino on yesterday, and they asked him simply the question is, well, you've coached teams, and he's strangled by Latrell Sprewell, that have had internal problems or whatever it is. How does it reflect? And he said, it's not going to affect them one bit. They're going to be able to play fine. Inside this huddle, there's nothing that's going to be negative on this team. And then you went and saw it. And what it is that Kyrie walks the walk. And he is playing exceptionally well in terms of effort, defensively. Look at those defensive plays. Look at that defensive play on Westbrook going down the stretch. Look at the hustle out there. He is walking the walk, and as long as he does, he continues to establish himself as doing what he says he's going to do for that team. I liked how yesterday's game played. I liked how the Charlotte game played, and I liked how the Brooklyn game played. In terms of more people taking part, I think Al Horford played tremendously against Charlotte. He said when he got angry and all of that stuff there, I think he's showing the type of leadership that's in the background maybe, but they can handle what Kyrie is doing. And I'm not worried about that going forward.
I agree with what you're saying 100%, and I think that the vitriol and the disgust from certain areas of the fan base, and I know that you maybe are in certain areas of that, and maybe from the
I'm there.
Yes, I know, from the overstimulation from certain aspects of the media, of just the overtiredness and exhaustion from Kyrie. I think it's gone too far. I think that Kyrie Irving he's obviously a very weird soul, and there's so many factors that you need to take into account when you're listening to him talk, and he is doing a great job in terms of leadership qualities on the court. On the court.
Okay.
On the court, he's fantastic, and he's struggling immensely in terms of a leader off the court. And he has taken strides. In the beginning of the season, he was calling out young players. He was calling out people around him, thinking that was a way to motivate them. He realized that was not the right way to handle it. He came back. He apologized for that, and maybe that was made into too much of a headline. But because of his stance in the league, because of his popularity, because of just the power of his brand, he's not calling the reporters around. The reporters are coming to him.
But
No,
you know
that's
what?
not-
But when they gather around, don't talk for 8 minutes and inadvertently bash people. He loves the attention, and yet when he says stuff, the next day all of a sudden he's like, I don't know why y'all are talking so much. Like, he was the one last summer that said, I'll come back if you'll have me.
Right.
Now he's saying, I don't know anybody S.
Yes, but I think
don't
he's
know
talking about
anybody
the media.
crap.
He's talking about the media. He's not talking about the fans.
No, but he knows what he's saying.
Yes, I know, but
it means he doesn't owe us anything.
No, it isn't.
And
It means he doesn't owe the timeline and the circulation of all this nonsense to try to drum up more drama that exists.
he knows what they're gonna say though.
Yes,
like
because-
he's not
but
smart
he doesn't
enough
care.
to handle the
No, he
limelight.
doesn't
It's
care.
not affecting the team.
Exactly.
The
The-
34
watch
Okay,
out.
and
Jalen
19.
Brown's not affected
He
at
is
all.
No,
a-
he's not. He's playing great.
course.
He's playing
He is
fantastic.
a special player.
There's
Listen,
long-term repercussions.
he's a
in what he
special
said.
player
think there
that
is.
deserves special treatment.
I think so,
He's
too.
so damn good, and what he's
Yeah, but
bringing
he's
to that.
such a diva. He's gonna end up
what he's
screwing this
bringing-
team.
He's one of the top five. Well, I think the top five. Anthony Davis is a diva. LeBron's a diva. Joel Embiid's a diva. The top five players
Not
in that
like
league.
this.
And I don't like the things he's saying either, but I'm not going to pay attention to them. I'm going to pay attention to the 34 and 19 and how they're playing on the floor and how he's playing and the effort, the best effort he's ever given in
I
his
don't
career.
trust a guy like this.
He's never played defense like this. He's bought in.
Think about it from Kyrie's perspective. In the beginning of the season, he's saying, I am all in. I'm bought in. I want to be here long term. I expect to be giving my all to this team, and I expect that the team to give it their all back. I know what to expect out of Brad. I know what to expect out of Danny, and he's aligned with the organization, and he's doing his part. And then moving throughout the season, there was pitfalls because of the lack of ability to take a next step from other players in the team. It was never him on the court. It was other people. It was Tatum not being consistent. It was Jalen and Terry struggling immensely. And obviously, as we talk a lot, it's Gordon. So think about him now. He's already said what he thinks about the future. And if the team was playing to the expectation he had in the beginning, he absolutely would double down. But I don't think it's in his better interest to say, I'm here no matter what, because what if going into the postseason, they don't make it out of the second round because Jaylen Brown, Terry, Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward don't play the way they're supposed to play, and then coming into the next season, maybe Danny Ainge is trying to jockey for better position in terms of free agency. They don't give Kyrie the deal he wants, but he's got to be tied to his word because he says he wants to be here. That's not fair for Kyrie.
Now he's talking to LeBron. He's got options. He could go to New York. They freed up space. He could go to the Lakers.
He's never going to give the media what they're expecting to hear.
Exactly.
And that's the game he plays. So when you ask him that question, see me on July 1st.
Yes.
All that means is that I'm not answering it the way you want
Yes,
to.
exactly.
I think
That's exactly it.
He should have never
The
talked
earth
as much
is
as he
flat.
did.
I'm just telling you I can say whatever I want. You guys take it anywhere you want and make his best. The earth, no.
I'm allowed to not like him as a person. He hasn't given me any reason
Well,
to
I'll
like
tell
him
you
as a
one
person.
thing that's happening, and I give
And I don't trust him. I
credit
don't know how you
I give
can.
credit to Brad. I give credit to is that rotation is starting to settle in. And that rotation on that team, and that's what we've been waiting to happen.
Yeah,
and
Brad
that's
ball
that's
from
what
last year is happening
Kyrie's
again.
been impatient with that. Yes, it hasn't happened the way he wants. But I don't care about what he says. That's not bothering me anymore. When I see how they're playing, I'm happy with the direction they're headed in. They play 7-2 without Kyrie. So I'll give you this one. After the Charlotte game, I'm going. Denise goes. And she's a casual fan, a good fan, but a casual fan. And she just off the top of her head, she goes, I wonder if Kyrie's out because they're going to trade him for Anthony Davis. And of course, that's not. But I'm thinking, and I would ask you guys the same thing. That game following against the Knicks, if you had your choice to take that team that played against Charlotte and add either Kyrie or AD, who would you add to that team? And at that point, I said, I would add AD.
Obviously.
But then when I saw how they played, I said, I'm just throwing that out there. This came out of me, that's all. But now that I've seen how they play, I say, Kyrie's fine. Kyrie's fine.
I still think there's like a 20% chance that he does get traded.
That's way too high. That's way too high.
Ainge has not
Ainge will
given
do
max
anything.
contracts to people with injury histories, and he doesn't really like diva mentalities. So, and also, we went to the Eastern Conference Championship as a Celtics team without Kyrie Irving.
And we played well without him.
If you can maximize the return for him, if there's so much cloud of what he might do in the future,
and I'm seeing that
then
sometimes
maybe it
too.
can
And I'll let
happen.
Danny Ainge and Brad. But
Maybe
I'll
it's
tell you one thing
10%,
that was really good to me yesterday. Again, it's just basketball stuff. Is that at the end of the game, about 1 minute and 30 seconds left, and Kyrie's on top. All right, so he's on the key, and he's isolated with Schroeder, and he does a little shake and bake, and he does his signature move, goes in where he does a spin to get in, and then does another spin on his step back. As he's going back there, I was 100% confident that was going in. And that was like absolutely, positively, not a second thought in my mind that the way that all happened and that the end result is splash, period.
Don't take it the
Someone
wrong way.
doesn't
I'm
just-
in love with
Incredible.
this game. I'm
It's
in love with this
incredible.
game.
I don't have that feeling about many guys in that league. I'll tell you that just can.
I think that
I'm with you there.
I think that the point of view and the perception that's negative from the Celtic fan base is disjointed, and I think that it's being manipulated by the media because Kyrie hates the media and he doesn't care how the media
No,
thinks.
because I'm one of them, and I've listened to just what he says. I don't listen to
Don't.
just headlines
Don't.
and them curving it.
But I mean, like when he says,
so
when
much
he-
gray
I know-
area
I know
with
what
it. No.
spin is.
No, but when he says, I don't owe anyone a bleep, and when he says, ask me again in
July,
July,
July
he's not being snappy.
He should have never
He's
said
being-
it in summer.
he's
In the
being-
summer
he's-
is what I'm
he
saying.
absolutely could. Why not? He's frustrated that the question is being asked to him. That he's not being confrontational.
I don't
He's
like
not
people
being,
who love the limelight and then say, I don't want the limelight. Stop.
He's
Like,
not saying he doesn't want the limelight. He's saying
No.
I don't want this negative type of tension
No,
that's circulating in the way that it
he
is.
loves hearing himself talk.
I think that I'm
more with
probably 80% sure that he's going to be on the Celtics next year. 80%. I think it's less than 1% chance that he gets traded. I think that he is an essential piece for this team if we're hoping to retain Anthony Davis. If Anthony Davis doesn't get traded by Thursday, we can bleed it into the conversation about AD. But I think that getting AD, because the Celtics do have the best package, getting AD 100% would secure. I think if we get Anthony Davis in a trade, I'm 100% confident that Kyrie Irving is
I'm
re-signing.
100% sure AD is never coming to the Celtics.
Why?
Because all the rumblings we've heard, the fact that AD's agent is best friends with LeBron, the fact that AD's dad was bashing the Celtics already for his their
Okay, so
treatment-
wait,
Shay,
for
wait,
their
wait,
treatment of
I just want to
Isaiah
add to
Thomas.
Sloan a little bit. Is that didn't Woj say today that the Celtics are not on his list?
So move it to Anthony Davis. So you ready? Again, let's return to the way I said you need to frame every single discussion. What leak benefits who, and from
Yes,
what frame
I'm-
does it make sense?
It's Woj.
From the elements of this Anthony Davis, a whole storybook going on, there's 3 players. There's so far in terms of what is getting leaked to the
we're
media.
going to AD right
We're
now.
going to Anthony Davis. There's the Lakers, there's the Pelicans, and there's Anthony Davis. That's who's in charge of the media, what's getting discussed. That's in charge of who's getting back-channeled. That's what's happening in terms of who's posturing to make something look like what's happening and what isn't happening. That's what has to do a lot, I think, with all this negativity around Kyrie Irving. Whose interest is for the Boston Celtics to not be included in Anthony Davis's list currently?
The Lakers.
Lakers
And the Knicks.
and Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis wants to be traded as soon as possible. Because do you think he wants to sit out of the playoffs
Not
again?
at all.
Do you think he wants to be first-round
Question.
exit in the playoffs? Do you think he wants to exactly? Do you
Right.
think his play? No, he wants to be in the playoffs.
Should I
this
play
year.
him? Should I not play
You
him?
think he wants
Should I show up in the gym?
He wants to play.
Should I practice
he
with
wants
them?
to play competitive late-season basketball as soon as possible, and he knows that if he includes the Boston Celtics, even if it's logical in his list, that means that the Pelicans are going to be less likely to trade him because they know that he is willing to go to Boston, so that package will be there. It's smart in terms of not only the Lakers, which are connected to both Rich Paul, LeBron James, and a lot of other powerhouses in terms of the media circulation, but also it's smart in terms of Anthony Davis to say that the Celtics aren't even in the discussion now.
True.
And I think that that's going to completely flip on its head on Friday, because on Friday, when the trade deadline no longer exists, I guarantee the Boston Celtics are a team of interest for Anthony Davis, because right now, he wants to go to the Lakers, and if you look at the other 3 teams on his list of being potentially traded, it's the Clippers, it's the Bucks, and it's the Knicks. And realistically, the Bucks and the Knicks have no package that is going to be able to trade him. He knows that, and the Clippers are a complete long shot. It would have to be SGA, Tobias Harris, who's an expiring, and a bunch of bogus first-round picks. So he knows that even though he's including other teams, it's still just the Lakers. We have information now that the Lakers offered their grandfather offer, which is Ingram, Lonzo, Kuzma. It's Rondo, Beasley, one other player, and 2 first-round picks. In addition to getting Anthony Davis, they would also get cap relief back to the Pelicans. and
Ingram
taking
wasn't
Solomon
on
Hill.
that original trade,
And
right?
getting Solomon Hill. He was, but this is the best possible offer they can offer. Maybe they would be willing to add one more pick. But even still, this deal isn't better than a deal that includes Tatum. In a deal that includes Brown, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, it's not better than the 6 deals that the Celtics could offer.
I agree. I think part of my thinking is that Anthony Davis wants to go to the Lakers, and that the reason he's
does.
doing this is because he wants to be playing on the Lakers tomorrow.
Exactly.
And what's confusing to me is that New Orleans is not going to take this trade. That's supposedly the Lakers made a proposal that was like to be negotiated, and expecting that New Orleans will come back with what they actually want, and then maybe they would take yes. If New Orleans is not going to take this trade that you just put on the table, which is virtually
Everything.
then if they're not going to take that, then why wouldn't they from the beginning say there's nothing that they can offer us other than LeBron that we're going to accept, because that means that they never had any intention of sending him to LA.
should.
Yeah, the Pelicans obviously have the
so-
chips because they know he wants to
And
go.
I'm surprised. I think that I'm surprised that New Orleans is not taking that whole pack.
would be really
it just seemed
stupid
to
if
me
they
as though
did.
that's what was going to happen.
mean,
We'll find out on
okay.
Thursday.
I mean, realistically, that's not a terrible trade. That's an
No.
okay trade.
I don't know if
Yeah.
Ingram was in the first package.
No, it wasn't.
originally.
He wasn't.
I think it was Ball,
Right.
Kuzma, and
Yeah,
Beasley and the picks. But with Ingram, that's a no-brainer to me that they pulled the trigger.
The one I wouldn't include is I
Yeah.
would not include Rondo, because I continue, as I said before the season
I don't
started.
think he has that much value
that
to the
I
Pelicans.
really
I think the Lakers are
I
trying to
think
get rid of him.
Rondo, James, and Anthony Davis is a match, because you saw how Rondo and Davis played last year. At the end of that year, you put LeBron on top of that. They may go out and they may trade everybody, go out and sign J.R. Smith and Carmelo Anthony,
they're probably
and
gonna
go
sign
forward with that.
They
you know,
want to sign Carmelo.
But it looks
that
like
would
it's
be a
not going to
team-
happen. If that
tough
trade
team
has
to
actually been offered to
defend.
them, they said no. They never had any
just
intention
think
of
that
trading
that's
to the Lakers.
obviously maybe how they can improve that is if they keep Rondo, they offer another first-round pick, maybe they include Josh Hart. and those are such small margins.
Yeah,
Those
of
are
course
just-
they would.
It's marginal
If
increases.
New Orleans came back and said, throw in another pick, they'd do it.
Right, but you're so right. It's just that if we haven't heard an accepted deal from them by now, I think it's far acceptable that it's not going to happen at all. And I think that that's why Kyrie Irving is getting dragged through the mud in saying that he's going to leave, because they need to create as much uncertainty around the Celtics in terms of what they have to offer as a package, in terms of what they have to offer as an organization, in terms of how appealing they are to Anthony Davis, to make them seem as murky and as unrealistic as possible, because the only reason that the Pelicans would ever do a trade with the Lakers right now is if this mythical Celtics offer that supposedly exists over the horizon isn't there. And then if they get past the deadline and all this speculation comes into fruition, even though it's not going to, and their hypothetical scenario comes to truth, then yeah, the Lakers probably have the ability to decrease their package because maybe there isn't as many other offers that they need to compete against. So that is an it's an interesting
Where'd that offer
way
come
to,
from, Shay? Did that really happen?
This
That-
offer, yes, this is a real offer
Today.
that happened today. This offer came out
and
about
New Orleans,
4
New Orleans has already said no.
We haven't heard. We haven't
Okay.
heard. This offer came about
I would not be
4 hours
surprised.
ago.
I would
4
not be
hours ago.
surprised they said yes to that.
That's not a bad trade offer. It's a good offer.
You gotta admit though, if indeed Kyrie Irving is being used as a pawn to murky up the waters or
He is, for sure. I
muddle
think
up
he's a
the
pawn for
waters,
sure.
he's not really helping. Like he's helping the cause of
Well, part of it's Sloan.
He's actively
and this has
working
been
as a
stated, but I
pawn.
think
It's almost like he's
absolute-
trying to help his buddy
It's
LeBron.
absolutely true that just like he didn't want to be connected as LeBron being the king and him being second, he does not want to hear that Anthony Davis is in control and that he's subservient to the deal because of Anthony Davis. He does not want to play second fiddle to anybody, and he takes offense to that, and that's his reaction to it. And part of it is that I don't want to hear Anthony Davis talking me. Talk me and Anthony Davis.
I think that at the end of the day, even though Dell Demps has done nothing to prove that he is a serviceable GM in the league, and it's
They were another
commonly
mismanaged
accepted
team.
that he's very
They've
poor.
had so many first-round picks that haven't worked.
I think that he sees through the bull, and I think he is clear that this package and this offer will be there in July or June so that he can go through. He can see what team is going to land the number 1 pick. Maybe it will be the Knicks, and maybe Kevin Knox, Ntilikina, a future first-round pick, and Zion Williamson. Maybe that's a better offer than this Brandon Ingram deal. Maybe it's better. Maybe he'd rather have those pieces than Lonzo Kuzma and 2 first-round picks that, with Anthony Davis and LeBron on the team, are probably going to be like 26 and 27. So I think it's just so obviously in Dell Demps' and the Pelicans' better interest to wait, because not only is Zion potentially on the table, Tatum's potentially on the table, and all of the treasure chest of picks that the Boston Celtics have are on the table. And then I also think that there's other teams that would be willing to get in. And
Denver, I heard.
I think that these teams probably are a little uncertain right now, and teams that are in a playoff push right now that may not, like Denver, that might not want to mix up their chemistry and their rotation that they have right now at a risk of Anthony Davis leaving. I think that those teams, depending on their success or failures in the postseason, will be more willing to throw out an interesting offer that maybe includes Jamal Murray and Michael Beasley and 4 first-round picks. You don't know. And it's so obvious that it's
about
Rich
Portland?
Paul and all these guys just funneling as much as they can to try to get Anthony Davis traded as much as possible right now.
So-
and it makes sense. Anthony Davis wants to get traded. He wants to play in the playoffs right now.
So
And this
next
team
week,
stinks.
I hope what we're talking about is
He didn't get
what
traded.
does New Orleans do with the AD now?
Right.
What the heck do they do with him now? Do they tell him to just stay
Sit him
home?
out the whole rest of the-
Do they want him showing up at the gym and sitting there on the bench?
So
That's
if
what
you,
I hope
okay,
we're talking
so
about.
if you had to bet, do you think they accept this deal? Maybe it's an improved deal. Maybe it's 3 first-round picks instead of 2. Maybe Josh Hart's involved. Does he go to the Lakers, or does he next week, when it's past the trade deadline, is Anthony Davis still in
If
the
I
Pelicans?
had to bet, I would say they accept that deal
They accept
because
this
they would have
trade.
already said
you
no.
think he
I
accepts
think
the
so,
trade too?
too.
Wow.
They
I
would have
think-
already
I think
said
no.
they would have already said they're not dealing him to LA.
I think that he is.
But LA's not in the game.
I think he's still on the Pelicans next Monday.
Okay.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Obviously.
As a
Hope
Celtics
so. But if that deal's on the table, I say
So
they take it.
if he ends up,
hope
hypothetically,
it's not
if he
Rondo.
ends up a Celtic
Yes.
and then they win the championship,
Yes.
he's a better player than Kyrie.
I mean, he's a better player than
so
Kyrie already.
Kyrie's the number 2 on a championship team again. Will Kyrie ever win one as the number 1?
Well, if you think about it, the roles
this
are
year.
it's tough for point guards on
They
their
got a
own.
shot this year.
The roles
to get
are
him.
a lot different. In terms of Kyrie with LeBron James is more of a fulcrum in terms of what the role on the offense is. Anthony Davis is going to
It's much
have
different.
a more of a dependence on Kyrie than LeBron did. You know what I mean? So Kyrie's role is going to be more cemented, and he's going to matter more. So
Yes,
I think
it's
he'll
much
be more.
different. It's much easier to
This
coach
day and
AD
age,
than it is to coach Kyrie.
there aren't that
Because
many-
Kyrie's got the ball. AD plays without the ball.
Should be interesting. We should get some
We'll
fireworks.
see.
Whether the trade happens or doesn't. Oh, that's.
Thursday's going to be quite a day. You got the trade deadline, and then you got the
Celtics, Lakers.
Then you got the Celtics and Lakers, and you got the.
Keeps landing on the
Aren't they
same
picking the
ones.
All-Star team that night too?
No.
Yeah, I think Giannis
they're
and
doing the
Giannis
draft.
LeBron,
They're doing
they're
the
picking the draft for the All-Star game
All right,
too.
so Tom Brady won his 6th Super Bowl ring. He has championships
awesome.
in 2019, 17, 15, 2004, 2005, and 2001. And then Michael Jordan has his 2 three-peats from 1991 to 1993 and 1996 to 1998. Basketball versus football is very interesting in terms of debating longevity and which one's more impressive. Which 6 championship career is more impressive?
All right, well, having been a key follower of both championship runs, I will say that Brady did more with less in a lot of the cases, but perhaps that Jordan was more individually responsible, I guess.
I think that's my take.
I think Jordan's were more spectacular.
Okay.
And I think that football is more of a team sport than basketball, and that there's 5 starters. And Jordan was such an integral part to a lot of those clutch key moments of his championships. Plus, Jordan went 6 for 6. Yeah. He never lost a championship. So.
I don't agree, but I would also add that I would also add that Michael Jordan played defense. All right, and so he played the other side. He played the other side of the ball. But I think what separates them in a couple of ways. And I'm with Tom on this side. I'm with Brady, and I think it helps being the hometown fan and having followed them with body and soul. But I like the do or die 1 game eliminations that he's had to play through. Instead of a 7-game series that plays out just in terms of the focus that you have on that game. So that's meant something to me. The other thing that means something to me is that the power of the 2-minute drills to win it. Yeah. You're watching a guy execute over 2 minutes. When you're watching Jordan, just as far as a fan, you're watching, it's the 24-second clock, and it's 1 play, and it's bang, it's done. The 2 minutes to me is just so powerful to watch him run those drills and to win those, the miracle wins that he's had.
I just don't know if last night or the first Rams Super Bowl, the first win over the Rams way back 19 years ago, I don't think either of them were as impressive or as spectacular to watch as any of the clutch moments in Jordan's
what I think makes it interesting is I think those
were underwhelming games.
They're so impressively awesome in such different ways, and both of you touched on it in different slights. And I think that you are absolutely right that Jordan is probably more individually responsible for the 6 championships that his Chicago Bulls earned than Tom Brady is individually responsible for the 6 championships that the New England Patriots earned. Although I think that it's been proven that it's more impressive and more difficult to win year after year after year after year in football than it is to win after year after year after year in basketball. So that gives credit to Tom. And although there are times where, like the first...
It also gives credit to Belichick, who's got 8 now.
Well, you got Phil Jackson.
Yes, and there's Phil Jackson. There's things you could say there. And whereas with last night and with the first Super Bowl, and depending on what other ones you talk about, where Tom can have an off game and they can still win, kind of talking about what you're saying in terms of it being a 7-game series, MJ can have a bad game and it'll get weeded out overall because in terms of an overall resume and a 7-game set, or 6-game, sorry, MJ, 6-game set, his statistics are still going to show out as being the most impressive because even if he only has 1 game where he has 17 points, which has happened in the finals for him, overall it's going to look impressive because he's going to have the 50-pointers, he's going to have the 40-point games, he's going to have the clutch moments, even if he's not making every play, even if Scottie Pippen has more games that are impressive in a certain finals matchup. It's going to be him at the end of the day that is the headliner, whereas if it's just 1 game for Tom Brady, it could be Gilmore that was the better player than him last night, or it could be in the beginning, you know what I mean? So it's interesting in terms of, I think, responsibility in comparison to the team success versus the impressiveness of you being there for every single run, I think is an interesting debate. So I'm more impressed by the longevity of the success by Tom, and I'm more impressed by how responsible Jordan is for his championship.
I think
very
that,
well said.
You know, I would add that they both have this, and that's when you looked in those huddles. Like, there's no doubt, Tom Brady, he was the most responsible person for that victory. When you looked at that huddle, their eyes were focused on Tom. Tom, what do we do? How do we go?
Yeah.
Tell us.
You're right. No,
Take
you're right.
care
That's
of us,
why
Tom.
it's-
And Jordan's got the same thing. I'm sure when they were in their huddles, they were looking right at Michael. Michael, how do we make this happen? Tom Brady.
That's why it's very distressing for this league to even think about life after Brady, because Brady, love him or hate him, he drives the ratings up, and Brady has complete control over the best team in football.
Another thing I would add
that's
is
a
that
great
on the basketball side, that there's no doubt who the GOAT is in football. There's no doubt. There's no
it's
doubt.
him. It's not
There's
close.
no doubt. In basketball, you've got some discussion on who the GOAT is, and you've also got, in this discussion, you've also got Bill Russell and Red Auerbach.
Yeah.
That you really do have to give some consideration inside its own game. That there's somebody else that's won 11 out of 12, however you want to slant. Just that we don't have to talk about that, but
total wins.
it's
Yeah.
there, I think.
No.
And they, football's got the
Nobody's
greatest.
versus
LeBron's
Tom.
got one of the great. I mean, the NBA's got one of the greatest in LeBron. The ratings have gone down since LeBron's injury. They're going to pick back up now, I guarantee you.
And Tom's
But
winning them at
what's the
41
world
years
gonna be
old.
like
and Michael's
without
last
these
one
two?
was at 35. I guess that's good for both of them. But you may, in 20 years from now, we may see somebody that's like LeBron is to Michael to Brady. It's possible. You know, you've got that gap there with
Maybe.
Michael.
I think I have it tie, but I'm from New England,
Yeah.
so I'm giving it to Tom.
Yes, that's what I want to do too.
All right, let's end it on maybe trade speculation, because I think that's, we could talk about that one, but that's fine.
Manual
So
spin.
there's a couple trades have happened. There's under the radar. Rodney Hood just got traded to Portland for Stauskas and a second-round pick. I think that'll help.
For Portland.
That'll help Portland. He's a good rotation player for them to add. They've struggled with depth, specifically in the playoffs, obviously, in the past. And I think he'll help. But I wanted to talk more on the potential deals that are outside of the main headliners, like Anthony Davis. Obviously, we saw the Porzingis deal, even though that was a surprise.
I got 3 of them.
We've heard a lot of rumors swirling around the Memphis guys in the last week or so.
Big salaries.
Michael Conley has been rumored to be in pretty heated discussions with the Utah Jazz, who are probably looking
with
to
Rubio.
pair Rubio, maybe Exum, and maybe a second-round pick, depending on how the contracts work out. I think that could be an interesting swap. And then on the other end of the court for them, Marc Gasol, he's been connected to both Detroit and the Charlotte Hornets. Detroit is a more interesting pairing. I wonder if they would be swapping a Drummond for Gasol. And then for Charlotte, I think that would be more of a pick-heavy deal. Maybe they include Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and a couple other players that could be slightly interesting. But I think that it's more likely than not that one, if not both, of those guys, the more you listen to how Zach Lowe and Brian Windhorst and all these experts that are deep into the trenches with these teams and these players, the more you hear them talk about it, they're pretty definite that they're going to go somewhere. And although it seems most likely that it's one of those 3 spots for those 2 guys, there could be a surprise team. And in the past, we heard Indiana for Conley. So it'll be interesting to see. How do you like Conley on the Jazz if something like that would happen?
I like that. I'm thinking, always thinking.
Does Donovan Mitchell
from
like
the-
that?
I like that. I love Mike Conley, and I think that he'd be I think he'd be a different match with Mitchell than, but Mitchell is. That's a question mark there.
Mitchell
I'm
loves
not
the
really
ball in
sure.
his
I
hands.
think that would be a decent trade. Marc Gasol. If you were the Celtics, would you trade picks for him?
Well, like Terry in a first? Terry
No,
Terry
not
and the
Terry.
Clippers?
Don't we
would
have
go,
4 picks
I mean,
coming
I'm hearing that Memphis will do it for picks, and so maybe you do Shemi Ojeleye and Tice and a pick. You know, I'm not really
I
looking
kind
to
of
trade.
like Tice.
Huh?
I kind of like Tice.
Yeah, but I mean,
no.
Marc Gasol I think would be a nice match for that team.
I'm too nervous to give up any potential valuable
Well,
assets.
Yeah, especially because he gets hurt every year.
who,
Gasol. But I
so-
would give up a couple of picks.
Yeah.
He's got so
I would
many.
give up my
they've
own.
got-
I would give up our
Ainge
own.
has so many
they could
picks.
with Baines out and everything.
And it's not that I don't think that he has the value of giving up the Clippers pick or something like that. And maybe in a vacuum, I absolutely would do that trade. I just think that we should continue to hold out until we know Anthony Davis isn't a possibility. And don't give up a pick that might be a lottery pick if we know that can be included.
Well,
in the-
I'm
Even
looking-
Vucevic. Not interested
I
in
think
Vuce?
Vucevic is a big item out there. Why not him to Milwaukee
Yeah.
for Snell, Maker, and some picks?
Maker's
he
on the block.
really helps Milwaukee in that
I think
situation.
Milwaukee's an automatic finals team if they get Vuce.
And I think that would be a nice trade for them. I'm hearing that New Orleans is making Mirotic and Randall
Yeah,
available.
everyone's available in the roster.
But
besides
I
Holiday.
like Mirotic for the Celtics. I think he would be a great one. And I don't like the idea of trading Rose. I like the idea of picks and the guys that aren't playing. Maybe Tice, but I don't really want to trade trade Rozier because that messes up Smart and the whole guard situation. I think Fultz could go from the 76ers
Yep,
for
Fultz could leave.
Terrence Ross or for a big. There might be some possibilities there. I think Jeremy Lin from the Hawks has got value.
Hawks
to guys.
have a lot of guys that
For
they're trying to trade.
instance, the Indiana Pacers with Kyle O'Quinn, that would be a nice. Kyle O'Quinn's not playing for the Pacers at all.
No.
He's still a good player.
The
that
Hawks
would
have
be a
been
good
trying
trade.
to trade Torian Prince too, who has a little bit higher value.
Somebody's gonna take him because he's a 3-and-D
He's the
guy
best
and he
value
knows how
guy.
to play basketball.
I like him.
He
Who?
might not be the
Torian
Torian
Prince.
Prince.
Yeah,
He's not the
yeah,
most talented guy, but
yeah.
he's a glue guy that could,
He's athletic. I think
help. He could
Cantor's
help a
gotta
playoff
go.
team.
The
I wouldn't
Hawks-
want Cantor, but
the Hawks and the Sixers have been talking a lot and a lot about a lot of different players. They've talked about Bazemore, they've talked about Prince, they even have talked about Jeremy Lin. And
The
I think
Sixers
that
are
those
looking
two-
at
those are two teams that are gonna be
the
circling each other.
buyout market for Wes Matthews too. Wes Matthews is being heavily
He's
courted
being
by a
shopped.
few teams.
He's being shopped. They're trying to trade him.
as we talk about
But if he
trades,
doesn't get traded, then people
one
are
thing
going
I
to
find
pounce.
that's interesting is the guys that have surfaced, like Fareed. Look what he's done. I mean, you just pick him up on nothing. Look at Jahlil Okafor with the
big
with the
pickup.
Pelicans out of nothing. Look at Lin. Look at Nerlens Noel.
Yeah,
These
he's
guys were
awesome
scrap
back-
heap
awesome back.
guys that are really good players. So
Well, it's
you-
all about putting him into a good team culture.
Yeah,
with good
really. So
coaching,
there's all those
and taking a good
possibilities,
swing
too.
at
So-
him. You got to really give the credit where it's due with guys like Daryl Morey going and signing people that are castaways with Fareed, Austin Rivers.
Well-managed teams.
These guys have come in. They filled a role that otherwise was irrelevant, and kind of
Yep.
people turn their nose up at those guys. They come in and they provide good minutes and really, really good effort on the court, and that's really what translates into them making differences. And there are people out there that aren't even on a team, and I
Yeah.
think that they could be valued. And I don't really like. I think Cantor's interesting. I think that he could be dealt
I don't
somewhere.
think they say so much about how bad he is defensively that it's like I don't want to touch him. But
Right.
but
I think there's a lot of stuff to pay attention to. Do you have any final thoughts of what potential trade that you would like to see?
I like Vucevic.
You like Vucevic?
If we could get Vucevic for Terry and one of Boston's firsts, I'd do it.
It's been interesting too. Full circle talking about Anthony Davis with all the rumors with Lonzo obviously being included in all the packages that the Lakers are offering. We heard last week or so when the first offer came out with Lonzo being included that he didn't want to play in New Orleans. And now we're hearing a lot of back-ended conversations with the Phoenix Suns really, really trying to throw their hat in the ring, and they want Lonzo Ball now. And they're looking like they might be a good, suitable third team, which is often needed for a big deal of this caliber. You do need multiple suitors to be able to carry out the cap gymnastics for something to be able to work. It'll be interesting. Maybe the Pelicans look to a Phoenix Suns, and maybe the Phoenix Suns throw in a heavily protected first and Josh Jackson. They get back Alonzo Ball, point guard, in a desperate position of need. And I love how Lonzo fits with Booker. I think that's an awesome pairing for
I
those
do
two
too.
guys.
That'd be
and
fun.
LeVar has already been speaking about it, and he wants him on
But
Phoenix.
Orlando and Vukovic, they've got the same need there. Vukovic is a very desirable player, as much as you don't like him.
I don't like Vucevic, but Vucevic would be very serviceable for a borderline
Better
playoff
than
team that's
that.
trying to make a team.
He's an all-star.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a lot of empty stats this year, but he's also quite the player.
You pay attention. You should watch Jonathan Isaac if you're watching any Magic games. I don't know why you would, but Jonathan Isaac has been awesome lately. He's been playing really well. And if you look at this team and you look at what Hammond and the guys at the front office there are saying, the only players that they're tied to are Bamba and Jonathan Isaac. And even Bamba
I'd love
in the
to see
middle of the
Bamba.
season has been in trade discussions. So really, Jonathan Isaac is the only player that they're really tied to for the future. But that's all the time we have today. Hopefully, Anthony Davis is still on the Pelicans for next show on Monday.
Yeah.
Who knows, though? Anything can happen in the association. Go Super Bowl, Patriots.
Congratulations.
Parade day.
We got the parade tomorrow.
And the Red Sox, with the trucks left today.
That's right.
Baseball in about 7 days.
LA hates us.
Yes, well, we need to get the full four.
We
We're
got
gonna get Celtics
two.
championship. We got to complete the full thing.
See you next week.
Later.
The wheel is turning and you can't slow down. You can't let go and you can't hold on.